Today, we are running an experiment with skin conductance for measuring electrodermal activity. So my name is Dr. Pierre-Majorique Léger. I'm the co-director of Tech3Lab. And the objective of the day is to present you the whole workflow by which we can record electrodermal activity during a human-computer interaction experiment. And today we have the chance to have Xavier, a research professional here at the lab. Hello, Xavier.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you very much for, again, being our participant in today's experiment.
My pleasure.
So today we'll be running a very simple experiment. We'll be presenting to Xavier videos of cats on YouTube. And we'll specifically be recording Xavier's arousals while watching these cats' video. So it's a very, very simple experiment, and to run this, we'll be using the Cobalt Blue Box to record the electrodermal activity of the participant. So let's go in Cobalt Capture and start a project, and then we'll add a participant so that we can start the experiment. So it's very simple to use Cobalt Capture. So from the main screen, you have on the top right a project. Most probably this project will already be created for you, but just for the experiment here, we'll create a new project. So, all right, so this is a test, and we'll call that the test for the cat experiment. And it's created by me, right? So I'm going to put my name here. And I will select camera and screen because I want to record both the face of the participant and the screen of the participant. So we'll go ahead and confirm that. And you see I have here on the screen the test cat experiment, and it's indicated new, and it was created by me. So I'm going to select this, and at the moment there's no participant, right? So it's a new project. And as a moderator, if I want to use Cobalt Capture for the next recording, I need to create a new participant. You probably have a name for this participant, a number. So in our case, we'll say that this is participant 001. So we'll participant 01. And we need to identify what is the Blue Box ID. We have several of those blue boxes here at the lab. You need to select the right one to attach the right signal to the right participant. So in our case, we knew in advance, we would check it out from the instrument, and it's blue box number 3 that we're using for this experiment. So we'll select number 3, and we'll confirm. So at this moment, we have an indication that it's not yet started. We have participant number 1 with blue box number 3 that will be the participant for our experiment. We now need to go ahead and select the little copy link for participation. So this is the unique link that we'll be using in the browser to be able to record the screen and the participant's face during the experiment. So this link, I just click to copy, and I'm going to use another tab right here. I click on the other tab, and I will paste this link in the tab, and I click enter. So here, what's important is that I want to be able to record the whole screen. And in this case, you see I have my screen. Xavier has his own screen. As a participant, I'm going to select screen number 2 because it's Xavier's screens that I want to be able to record. And I'm going to say share. All right, so we are good to go at this point. We've started the recording. We could stop the recording from here, but to actually see the participant and the screen, we need to go back to the Cobalt Capture tab, and we need to click on the participant. And by clicking on the participant, therefore I have the participant face, so I can see my participant, and I have the desktop of the participant. All right, so we're ready to start. There's nothing else we need to do. I have my video here. You see it's a video tab. I'm going to show it to you. It's in full screen, and as soon as I'm gonna press start, Xavier will see the video on his side. So I'm gonna share the full screen to the participant, and because I'm using a PC, if I do Shift, Windows, and left, because it's the left screen in this case, automatically Xavier now have the video on his screen. So I can still see the video from my screen because I'm using a Cobalt Capture to observe what the participant will be doing. I have his face, and I can click here on blue box information. So this is the signal, this is the electrodermal activity in microsiemens that is currently recorded. So I can see that I have a good signal. I can see over time that the signal is recording. So I'm good to go. I can close this because I don't need to watch the signal in real time during the experiment. This is the phasic reaction. There's not a lot you can interpret just by looking at a signal during the experiment. So what we want to make sure is that we can observe the participant and the recording. So I'm going to go back to this screen, and I will now go ahead and press start. All right, Xavier, are you ready to start the experiment?
Yes, I am.
What I will ask you is to sit back and casually watch YouTube as if you were at home. So enjoy and relax.
Okay.
All right. So I can still go ahead and look at the blue box information, which confirms that data is currently being recorded during the experiment. And I can see that I have this continuous stimuli presented to my participant. I will eventually need to go and make insert marker, because this is just a continuous recording to be able to segment the data and eventually be able to see which segment creates the most arousal within my continuous recording. All right, so let's stop the experiment after this one, because I think you understand the process at this point. What we did here is a continuous recording. The skin conductance of Xavier was recorded continuously during the experiment. This was a passive reaction, and there was no behavioral reaction required by the participant. So the next step is we will go now in Cobalt and review the recording and insert markers in between each of the cats presented to Xavier, so that we can eventually export the data and look at the specific skin conductance of each of the time window. So now that we have completed the experiment, I need to stop the recording in Cobalt. So in Cobalt Capture, I have a very simple way. It's stop participation. So by clicking here, some post-processing is being done on the server. I need to authorize here the fact that I will be downloading two files, from the system. It's been downloaded. If I go here, I will go and see I have 2 files with very, very specific file names. Just to make sure that we are not losing them, I will just edit the name here in the folder, and I will remember that this is P01 in our cat experiment. All right, and this is the camera. This was the face of Xavier that was recorded, and this is the screen. I'll do the same with the screen name. So I will say P01 cat experiment and the screen. So these 2 files will be used just to use in the post process. For example, the face of the participant could be used in Face Reader. We're not covering that today, but that could be one way of using those files. When I go back to Cobalt Capture, I have a video recording of the whole experiment, right? So we have here, you see this is at the moment when we started the experiment, and if I go ahead and move, I will eventually be able to see the moment where I have the first cat. And I have down there ways to move the video by just a few frames so that I can have a very precise measurement of when the experiment was started. So if I find it, all right, so the goal here is to find as precise as possible the moment where the clip starts and the clip ends so that I can add some marker. So I should be around here where we started the video. So you see when we start play, and I will go ahead and add the first marker. And just for the sake of this, I'm going to add marker for each of the segment with a start and an end. So I will say this is segment 1, and this is the start. I'm going to add the marker, and I will continue on here and try to be as precise as possible when we move to the second video. I went a little bit overboard, so I'm going to move 10 milliseconds back so I can be precisely at the beginning of the second video and the end of the first one. So this is moving frame by frame. I can go a little bit faster with 100 milliseconds. So, all right, so I'm about at the right moment. I'm going to add a marker. Oops, so this is the segment 1 end, and I would be doing another one, segment 2 start, right? And again, I would wait a little bit. I'm going to run the second one, and I will go and add a second end marker here, right? So I went a little bit overboard. I'm going to come back in the timeline. All right, so this is about the end of the segment. So segment 2 end. All right. All right, we're now done with coding all the events in our experimental timeline. Remember, I coded just a few of them before we start, but you know, the magic of TV, all the other markers are now coded in the system. So just as a review, the 12 cats that were presented to Xavier now have a very specific and precise moment of start and end. Suppose that, let's say we would like to review the markers, I could click here on marker start that happened exactly at this time. If I click here, it's going to bring me exactly at the beginning of the event, and I click end, I'm going to be brought at the end of this event and the beginning of the next cat presented to Xavier. So that has been done very precisely, frame by frame. And as I explained previously, you can use this tool to go back or go forward just by either 1 milliseconds, 10 milliseconds of or 100 milliseconds to be able to move precisely in your marker. Depending on the signal you're analyzing, this is very important, right? You want to be able to capture precisely in the timeline when the start and end happen in this continuous stimulus, right? So remember from other experiments that we may have seen in timeline using Toby, for example, where we had the system to provide the occurrence of the marker. Here, this is a continuous stimuli, and there's nothing that can tell the system that there is an event. So that's why we need to create those marker and to insert them manually using COBOL capture. When you're done with this for this participant, and you will need to do that for every single participant of your data collection, you're ready to export the marker. As there is a little arrow here on the top that shows that you can export the marker out of COBOL capture. This will create a file, a JSON file, with a name that can be somehow cryptic. So you will want to go and modify this name. So just as a naming convention, you don't lose your, so it was cat experiment that we had created for the other. So I have here the JSON file, the export marker for my participant number one. So let's just write that this is a marker, and it has been put in the download folder. You may want to bring that back to a folder where the rest of your things are located. So I have done this on the desktop. So if I go back on the desktop, I'm going to bring back here with the rest of my experiment all my other markers. This is where I had put the video that I captured, but now I also have those markers that will be used later on to upload in PhotoBoot, where we can synchronize all the different information and also post-process the data. Let's talk a little bit about the recording of the data during the experiment. So the data, the skin conductance data, was collected directly on the COBOL Blue Box during the experiment. So this is an instrument that we have designed here at the lab, and you may read about the instruction of how to use this. And the one thing I'd like to emphasize right now specifically is about the data that is captured and recorded on the micro SD card on this device. So what you have here, if you extract the micro SD card on this card and using a card reader, you're able to go and extract the file and have a look at the exact raw data collected during the experiment. And for example, you may want to use a software like Excel, like here, to report on, just to graph the data. This is very useful to have a stronghold on what you're actually capturing and maybe do some quality assurance of the data that you're recording throughout your experiment. So doing that as a way to make sure that the data is correctly recorded on the device, and also having some form of an assurance that there is variance in the data you're collected. So there are two files that are recorded on the micro SD card for every single recording on a COBOL Blue Box. And the two of them contain about the same information, but the second one is more usable. So you want to look at one that would be a much larger file than the first one. So in this case, we have almost like a 8 megabyte file that contains all the data of the recording. So let's take a look at it. You have a few information about the firmware and date of the recording, so that's always useful, and also information about the sampling rate. So in this case, when we recorded Xavier's participation in the experiment, that was recorded at a sampling rate of 100 data point per second. So we would say 100 hertz. And then we have, for every single time point, we have the information about different value. The one that you're interested in is the electrodermal activity, and you have here, that would be the last column on the right. So if you open that with an Excel, for example, you're able to import the data. The data will import in a very structured way, and that would lead you to be able to plot a graph, for example, a line graph like this one, so that you can look over time the fluctuation of EDA during your experiment. You will be able to also to do that with later on with post-process information, but as a quality assurance, getting understanding your data, I think, is a very important thing for any researcher. And in this case, the data is easily available on the SD card. So as a good practice, making sure your data is recording well and that you have that type of variance in your data is something that you should be looking after conducting an experiment. So what have we done so far? Well, in this first part, we have recorded in a continuous stimuli a electrodermal activity of a participant given a emotional stimuli that generated some arousal that we measured using a skin conductance device. We were able to create markers in the file so that we were able to analyze very specific time windows that we would analyze after we can export the data from the Cobalt capture into another software called PhotoBoot. So what we did here is that we had to create the marker manually because we were looking at a continuous stimuli. So we now need to move to another type of experiment where we would be able to create the marker directly so that we're able to inherit of those automatic markers. We also want to be able to use it in a way that we're able to capture the behavioral response of a participant. So the next stage of this is that we'll re-record another experiment, also with cats, but other cats, but this time we'll use Toby. So you've seen in previous videos where we have created a timeline in Toby. So in this case, we've created a timeline where we will be able to present the cats, but then ask our participant to rate the level of excitement and enjoyment they have at watching cats. So look, let's move to the next video.